We hear you, Mary.
Just shuts it off. Oh, there it is.
One, two.
Seven, we'll get seven. Over here. Okay, 5 o'clock. We'll call this meeting to order. It's 5 o'clock. Do we have a roll? Do we have a roll call?
Zero, 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 zero. 4 zeros.
We have 23 present and 6 absent.
All right. Mine's stuck here, so. All right, let's pledge for allegiance. Do you want to lead us tonight, Dwayne?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Take a moment of silence to think about our business tonight. Please be seated. We have a full docket tonight. We're in compliance with the open meetings law, Andre?
Compliance, Mr. Chair.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Brogger, second by Supervisor Jago. Questions, discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none? Agenda's approved. Communications. Madam Clerk.
I have a proclamation by Sheriff Paul Milbrass proclaiming the week of April 11th through the 17th, 2021 as Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Jefferson County. Whereas 9/11 is nationally recognized as the number to call in an emergency to receive immediate help from police, fire, emergency, medical services, or other appropriate emergency response entities. And whereas 911 dispatchers are responsible for the safety of our police officers, firefighters, and paramedics who are dependent upon the quality and accuracy of the information obtained from individuals who contact emergency communications centers. And whereas the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office 911 dispatchers are the first line of communication and the most critical point of contact Jefferson County residents and visitors have with emergency services, and whereas Jefferson County Sheriff's Office 911 dispatchers serve as the most important link of service between our police, firefighters, and paramedics by monitoring their activities by radio and computer, providing them information and ensuring their safety. And whereas Jefferson County Sheriff's Office 911 dispatchers have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fires, and treatment of patients through their commitment and dedication to public safety. And whereas Jefferson County Sheriff's Office 911 dispatchers have shown and exhibited compassion, understanding, professionalism, and the ability to work under extreme pressure during the performance of their duties. And whereas Jefferson County Sheriff's Office 911 dispatchers have shown great levels of dedication in 2020 and into 2021 by working understaffed, voluntarily working overtime, and filling in for each other to cover shifts. And whereas this demonstrated dedication and professionalism by the Jefferson County Sheriff's Office 911 dispatchers directly contributes to the safety of the citizens of Jefferson County, as well as its police, firefighters, and paramedics. Now therefore be it resolved that Paul Milbrath, Sheriff of Jefferson County, Wisconsin, does hereby proclaim the week of April 11th through the 17th, 2021 as Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in Jefferson County, and call upon all government officials, parents, teachers, school administrators, caregivers, business leaders, nonprofit organizations, and the people of Jefferson County to observe this month with training, events, and activities to educate the public on 9/11 and its services to the people in Jefferson County.
Thank you. And then we have some retirement recognitions. Terry? For those of you in the audience, Terry Palm is our Human Resources Manager.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay like this, so I'm not echoing?
Yes.
People online can't hear me? Okay. Before we get started off of that last proclamation, I just want to echo what is put in there. If, for those of you that don't know, our 911 dispatch center operates 24/7 with 9 full-time people. And a lot of times they are not staffed with 9 people. In fact, during COVID, with some people that were out, they were sometimes operating with 5, at 1.4 people covering that. So they really do need recognition for everything that they have done and continue to do. With that, I'm looking around and I'm trying to see if we have any retirees here, because I can't see that far, and with masks, recognizing anybody. Thank you, Lance. I thought so, but I wasn't positive. We do have 3 retirees. We did have one individual that I thought was going to appear virtually. So I would like to recognize these individuals. Part of it is for me, I've known all of these people personally, and which just makes me realize that I should be next in line pretty soon to retire. So first, I'd like to recognize Sharon Olson for 40 years and 2 months of dedicated service. For those of you that don't know, she has been with Human Services that entire time and retired as the ADRC division manager there. Also, Linnell Austin with 18 years and 7 months of service. She also was with Human Services, ended up her career there, primarily working with payroll and attempting to manage some of the complicated billings that they have to do for the individuals there. And then Lance, if you have a minute and you want to come forward. This is just appropriate. Lance Shanahan was with our county for over 21 years. He was a dispatcher there, I believe, started part-time and ended up full-time there, just very recently retired. I consider him a friend as well, and I really appreciate all the dedication that you have done. I know personally you have given up your vacation time, come in maybe when you didn't feel the best of times, covered for people that weren't there, and have dedicated so far your last 21 years of service there, and I really do appreciate everything you've done.
I guess I talked out quite a bit when I was a dispatcher over the years, so all I would like to say is thank you very much. I'm very grateful for this recognition. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you. That moves us to item number 7, special order of business. Council Blair Ward.
Good evening. All of you have been provided in your county board packet a draft joint development agreement. The development agreement was also made public and emailed to all county board supervisors. What I'm going to do is I'm going to talk a little bit about that joint development agreement and how we got to where we are tonight with that agreement. First of all, why are we entering or proposing to enter into a joint development agreement? The utility company, We Energies, petitioned the county for a conditional use permit back in June or July of 2020. And in order for the power company, We Energies, to conduct business, they had to get a conditional use permit from the Planning and Zoning Committee. And they went through the process, filed an application. Planning and Zoning Committee granted the permit. Special exception or a conditional use permit is the type of permit granted. And the Planning and Zoning Committee said if you want a permit, you have to enter in a joint development agreement with Jefferson County and the town of Ixonia. That's where the facility is proposed to be located. So the reason we're entering or considering a condition or a joint development agreement is based on the directive of the Jefferson County Planning and Zoning Committee. Currently, the Planning and Zoning Committee's decision is being appealed to the Jefferson County Board of Adjustment. A citizens group in Ixonia opposed the facility being constructed, liquefied natural gas facility, a big operation consisting of 165 acres of total land. 25 is going to have the structures on it. The other remaining 145 is going to be a buffer. And the appeal is currently going. We had our most recent decision meeting with the Board of Adjustment today at 10 o'clock. The Board of Adjustment did not make a decision as to whether or not it was going to uphold the Planning and Zoning Committee's decision. So we're still waiting. We're still waiting for a decision, but that does not affect the ability of the county board to consider the draft joint development agreement that's been in the packet. So that's basically the history of how we got here. I will comment that there has been quite a bit of negotiations between Jefferson County, the utility company, We Energies, town of Ixonia was involved. Primarily the executive committee was the driving force behind the changes that I'm going to go through in a few minutes. Most recently, we had a meeting with the executive committee that lasted about 4 hours. They were reviewing this agreement, and after that 4-hour meeting, I was given directives to negotiate with We Energies for additional provisions in the joint development agreement, which I did. And for the most part, they agreed to many of the conditions that were proposed by the executive committee. So this joint development agreement started basically as a template. What we used is we used development agreements that we had used previously for solar power facilities. And we had previously negotiated these agreements representing Jefferson County's interests, and we used that as a baseline to start the discussion, to start the negotiations. That was 3 or 4 months ago, as I said, and it has evolved to where it is today, focusing specifically on the operations of a liquefied natural gas facility. And as I get into the specifics of the agreement, I'm going to talk a lot about safety concerns. That was the number one focus of the executive committee. They wanted to make sure that the citizens of the town of Ixonia were adequately protected in case of emergency. So that was a lot of addition to the joint development agreement draft that wasn't there with a solar power generating facility. You don't have those same issues. So we added quite a bit to the joint development agreement. I'm not going to go over everything that's in this agreement, but I am going to focus on the highlights, focus on the provisions of the agreement that were negotiated over the past few months, primarily at the directive of the executive committee. One of the additions that they asked for was that the facility provide the county with any plans that they have for the construction of the facility, as well as any amended plans. So initially it was just provide plans for the construction and operation, but we put in a provision in there that they provide the county with any amendments to those plans so the county can keep track of the progress of the facility. Also added was the project's requirement to attend and establish a pre-construction meeting so that members of the public can attend and understand what's going on. So this was a public meeting that was added and agreed to, at least in principle, by We Energies. And I should say, just so the county board has some perspective on this, the town of Ixonia has approved through the town board the agreement, the draft agreement that you have in front of you. They voted on it and they voted to approve it. Now, We Energies has not taken any official action to approve what you have in front of you, but they verbally agreed to enter into the agreement as presented to the county board today. So if the county board, for example, would agree to what's been presented to them, then we would have an agreement. Then I would expect We Energies to sign, I would expect the town of Exonia to sign, and the resolution before you would give our county administrator the ability to sign that agreement. Additional provisions that were negotiated were for any expert that was required to provide an opinion, that expert would be mutually agreed upon by the parties. Initial language was that We Energies would select an expert, and the executive committee wanted to add language to make sure that the town of Exonia and Jefferson County would agree on an expert. And one of the experts that's referenced in here deals with experts who would look at the conditions of roads prior to construction. What's the condition of the road after construction? Has there been any damage? Does there need to be any repairs? That's mentioned in multiple places throughout the agreement. Also added were progress meetings. The utility and the town of Exonia and county are now required to engage in progress meetings on a monthly basis so the county and town can be informed of the progress of the construction of the facility. Also, regular updates must be provided to the public by the utility on how the project is moving along. There's a requirement for the utility to incorporate any safety recommendations in its planning process that the town of Exonia Fire Department deems appropriate, and the recommendations of any other emergency responding agencies that the town of Exonia Fire Department deems appropriate. Keep in mind, the town of Exonia Fire Department is the agency with jurisdiction. If there is an emergency there, it's a town of Exonia, the facility is in Exonia, but as is the standard operating procedure, when a fire department responds to an event, there most likely is a mutual aid agreement where other agencies respond to assist if needed. And that's one thing we focused on in negotiating this agreement, that there may be a scenario where the town of Exonia Fire Department may receive mutual aid from other agencies. And if that's the case, those other agencies need to be trained on how to respond to any type of event at a liquefied natural gas facility, because it's not its typical type of event. We'll get into it in a little bit, but there's specialized equipment that needs to be used to respond to these events. And that's been provided by We Energies, and that's also in the joint development agreement. Talked about roads, what roads can be used, and they're set out in the agreement. It says if there's any other roads that the utility wants to use, they have to negotiate with the town or county to use those roads, and of course be responsible for any maintenance and damage to those roads. Drainage, talked about drainage. They have to be responsible for drainage of the property that they're using. Initially, it was just the drainage on their 25-acre site where the construction is going to take place. That's been expanded to the entire 165 acres. 140 of that is the buffer, and 25 acres is the actual site. So they agreed to maintain drainage on 165 acres as needed throughout as long as they operate the facility. So that's basically indefinitely. Another request of the executive committee was the decommissioning process. The concern was, what if the facility ceases operations? What happens then? Is it going to be an abandoned building for 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? What's it going to be? Well, we added a provision that says they have to start the decommissioning within 12 months after the Public Service Commission says that they are no longer operational or used and useful, as the terminology goes. We also talked about vegetative buffers. There's a lot of people from the town of Exonia who don't want to look at this facility. It's in their backyard. What we have here is we address vegetative buffers. We Energies has agreed to install, they call it a natural visual transition for residential properties that have a direct line of sight to the facility. Initially, it was just primary residences that had a direct line of sight, but we expanded that. So We Energies will provide a buffer for all residential houses or residential properties with a direct line of sight. So it could be a rental property, it could be a vacant parcel of property. And as long as it's a parcel of property where a house could be built, the utility is willing to provide a vegetative buffer. And We Energies actually even went further at the request of the executive committee and designated a certain geographic area within the town of Exonia where residences would be eligible for up to $5,000 so they could install their own vegetative buffer, and that would be reimbursed to them by We Energies. Also discussed was lighting. There was just a general reference to lighting, which really didn't have much weight. The executive committee asked that it we elaborate on lighting, and there's a paragraph on how light is limited on the facility, must be directed downward, must have shields on the light, talks about no more than 1 foot candle shall escape from the site to adjoining residential properties, and also no flashing lights are allowed on the facility unless required by the FAA. Also added was that the buildings, all buildings except the tank itself, shall be earth tone or tan in color to blend into the surrounding area. Broadcasting, there is concern that the facility might interfere with over-the-air broadcasts of surrounding landowners. We added a requirement that if there is a broadcast disruption, We Energies must work with the owner of the property and try to figure out a solution. Emergency response, that's probably what we spent the most time on with the executive committee. They added a requirement that prior to the start of construction, Jefferson County and the town of Ixonia be provided an emergency response plan. And not only is the county and town provided the plan, they're required to approve the plan, the county through its emergency management director, before construction even starts. So we can at least take a look at the plan and approve the plan and ensure that it meets all the concerns that the county has. And the agreement even added additional provisions specifying what should be in the plan. And it added specifically telephone numbers of responding agencies are in the plan, how are neighbors going to be notified if there is an emergency, and where will an assembly area be if there is an emergency situation. So that's all in the plan. The concern was how are the neighbors going to know where to go and what to do if there is an emergency. Another requirement was for the utility to not only work with the town of Ixonia, but any other locally affected agencies. I think I mentioned that earlier, but we have it in this agreement in at least 2 locations requiring the utility to work with other agencies that may be involved in a response. And the other thing that we put in the agreement, even though I think it's required by federal law, is that We Energies will be required to stage its own equipment in response to an emergency at its facility. So if a local agency responds to an emergency, they don't need to have all their unique equipment specific to this type of event. The equipment will be on site. All responding agencies need to bring is their typical firefighting emergency equipment to the site, and then they can use the specialized equipment that is kept on site. So that's put in there as well. Even though it's under federal law, it still gives the county some assurances that this language is in there. So that basically covers what has been added to this agreement since it first started many months ago. And that basically covers it. Are there any questions? I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Questions? Looking out here. I see none. Blair?
All right. We do have one from Supervisor Renard.
Supervisor Renard.
Sorry, I missed the beginning of your presentation, but I'm wondering if you would talk a little bit about the actions of the Board of Adjustment this morning and how that impacts or does not impact the JDA and the process with that going forward.
Yes. What effect does the Board of Adjustment have on this whole process? The Board of Adjustment took no action today. They wanted more information. So right now we have a conditional use permit that's been granted to We Energies and the owners of the property. Our county zoning ordinance says that conditional use permit remains valid even though it's been appealed. So legally, there's no distinction between a permit that's simply been granted and one that's being appealed. So there is no issue right now with the status of the conditional use permit. That is still, still in place.
Thank you.
I do have another comment. I was asked to explain to the board what happens if the joint development agreement is denied by the county board tonight. You have a resolution and you have a joint development agreement, and the resolution authorizes the county administrator to sign the joint development agreement on behalf of Jefferson County. So just like any resolution, the county board can deny it. They can vote to deny it. What happens if it's denied? Well, then you don't have a joint development agreement. Our county administrator has no authority to sign it. The utility and the landowners don't have the ability to comply with the requirements or condition of the Planning and Zoning Committee. So basically, it stops things. You can't move forward. And my concern, if that would happen, we'd have some legal issues because we have one arm of the county the Planning and Zoning Committee saying you have to enter into a joint development agreement with Jefferson County. Then you have Jefferson County saying we're not entering into a joint development agreement with you. So I'd have concerns about that. If we did go down that road, we could take a look at it. If that happened, I would have to provide some additional legal advice on how best to proceed if it was a simple denial. If there was a denial, or in the sense that it wasn't approved tonight, I would ask that the board give the staff directives on what the problem is. If there's an issue with, if it's denied because certain provisions aren't in there, at least that gives the staff direction on what to seek in this agreement to make it acceptable to the county board versus an outright denial. But that was a question asked of me. What if it's denied? So I'd hope I'd get some guidance on what the issues were so I could focus on them if it was denied. Are there any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Seeing none. Which moves us to item number 8, public comment. And this is public comment on items that are on the agenda tonight. And just for the record here, I have letters for public comment concerning the resolution number 9 from Virginia Colburn, Mary Schaefer, Catherine Smith, Clerk Eckert, Amy Eckert, Tiffany Carey, Laura Sager-Garsky, and Sue Kelling, all of Exonia, and all are Virginia Cogburn is of Whitewater, but they all are opposed to this resolution in the JDA. And I also received one in the mail today or yesterday directly to my house, and that's from Vic Carolinas from Economock, who's also opposed to this JDA. So that takes us to people that signed up here tonight for public comment. We have a half an hour's worth of public comment, and with the number of people on here, that allows each of you a maximum of 2 minutes. I will time you if you would like to speak longer, and then pool your minutes with somebody else if you're going to say the same thing. But otherwise, each one of you gets 2 minutes, and I will time it, and then the next person will speak. So the first up is Bill Blask of Lake Mills.
I'm Bill Blask, Lake Mills. I'm president of the Quad County Runners ATV Club that I started 6 years ago. We're in 4 counties now and have a membership of about 200 people with the average age in our club 52. There's 5 additional clubs here in Jefferson County that, besides ours, makes 6. 90% of our club machines are UTVs, and they're equipped with standard seat belts and roll cage, makes them safe. This ordinance requires all ATV, UTV operators to have a valid driver's license. 2019 statewide fatalities. This is statewide. Motorcyclists killed 82, pedestrians killed 53, bicyclists killed 14, ATVers killed, these are riding on legal routes, 4. And UTVers killed on legal routes, 2, and those didn't have their seatbelts on in the UTV. There's never been a fatality on a UTV on a legal route when the occupants were wearing their seatbelts in 2019 or 2020. Right now, there's 430,000 registered ATV, UTVs in the state of Wisconsin. It's the fastest growing family activity in the state right now. Wisconsin has over 41,000 miles of road routes and only about 2,000 miles of dirt trails in the state. All ATV, UTVs must display a rear license plate and registration sticker on each side of the machine. Right now, there's 8 states that provide a license to operate a UTV on all highways except for interstates right now. And there's 14 counties that I know of in Wisconsin that allow on all county roads, with a few exceptions, and just about all counties in the state.
Time is up. Next would be Mr. Jeff Sabell of Milford.
I am Jeff Sabell. I live in the town of Milford. 2 years ago, as town chairman, we passed this ordinance in Milford to allow ATVs, and we really can't do much with it in Milford simply because we have Highway A and we have Highway Q, and none of the roads can join other than county roads. So, I mean, we're kind of really past something that we can't use without your guys' help. And I have a lot of neighbors that want to buy UTVs to use this, but they won't do it until we get the roads passed. And just the economic impact that this will put on. I mean, these average UTVs cost $20,000. Well, you put that, or 0.5% sales tax for the county, that's a pretty good chunk of change coming in every year. And buy these, they buy the accessories, and instead of taking the money to go on the Black River Falls, all that money will stay here in Jefferson County. I think it's a good thing, and I think it'll be a nice deal, nice family. Like mine, I got heating air conditioning in mine. We take it, the wife and I go riding, you know. So I thank you for your time, and I hope you pass this.
Thank you. Vic Carolinas from Exonia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this opportunity to speak. And my name is Vic Carolinas, and I live in the town of Exonia at West 262 Hillendale Drive. And I'm here to speak on resolution number 9 as far as the liquid natural gas facility is concerned. And I'll make this brief because I only want to make one comment about the JDA. And that is the JDA, even though there's language in there to include notification to the residents as far as an emergency plan is concerned, but that's not until after this is signed. And I can't understand why it's not that important to the county board as to why that wouldn't be preceded so that we would have a complete evacuation plan, a complete emergency plan before the JDA is signed. So I would ask that all of my county board supervisors would deny this until we have that information. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Russell Feith of Hebron. Russell Feith, Feith of Hebron. Russell? Okay. Dale Griebnow, town of Exonia. What's that?
Good evening. My name is Dale Griebnow, and I live at N9235 Green Valley Road, Watertown. I'm a member of the Griebnow family and one of the owners of the land being considered for the We Energies liquefied natural gas project. The clock is ticking, but not just the clock. The calendar has flipped months since this was introduced. The Planning and Zoning Committee approved the CUP November 11th. 2 projects were introduced at that same time on December 8th last year. 1 project proceeded. 1 was put on the slow track in the Executive Committee, spending 1 meeting to check the spelling before they even agreed to the larger points. The Executive Committee held 6 meetings already. The town approved the CUP on September 14th, 2020, and passed its JDA draft back on January 11th, 2021. This is not about the approval or disapproval of the project itself. There's a window of opportunity to work an agreement on the JDA. Failing to act will not stop the project because it is already under consideration at the Public Service Commission. Once they move forward, this train will have left the station. If you fail to act, you will lose the ability to protect the county's interests. What did you accomplish? Do you really want to say you have nothing to offer? I urge you to pass this JDA without delay. Thank you.
I have Jeanine Griebnow.
Good evening. My name is Jeanine Griebnow, and I live at N9235 Green Valley Road. I am also a member of the Griebnow family, and we are the owners of the land being considered for the We Energies LNG project. Thank you to the county board for allowing us the opportunity to speak today. We are very appreciative of all the time the county zoning staff and all three legal departments have put into the JDA. The JDA was negotiated in good faith, and it is a good document. The Griebnow family is in favor of the JDA. Having a JDA is in the best interest of the county and the town because it contains important protections for both Jefferson County and the town of Ixonia. This has been a controversial document, to say the least. The public has had ample opportunity over the last 6+ months to comment on the JDA at both the town and the county levels. And I think it's really important that the county think about, do you want to protect your interests or not? Because the Public Service Commission is on a path of potentially approving this project. And what happens if the Public Service Commission approves the project and we don't have a JDA? You, as my husband said, you might miss the boat. So I urge the county board to vote and approve the JDA this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill Ingersoll, Town of Concord.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Bill Ingersoll. I've been on the town board for 20 years in the town of Concord. Last 8 years, I was town chairman. I'm here to show support of the item number 10 for the county to open up the roads to UTVs and ATVs. 2 years ago, my town decided to allow ATVs in our little township, and it was a pretty good concern. We had the usual 5 people show up. We usually had about 25 show up that night. And we put a sunset clause in it also. And 2 years have passed now, and not one incident, not one phone call was ever brought to me, and no any harm or anything became of the UTV ordinance. So I, again, want to support it. We took a survey last month, and 2 out of the 3 supervisors in our little township were in support of the UTV ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. Brings us to Bill Rader from Fort Atkinson.
All right, thank you. I also am speaking on number 10. I am president of the Hebron Knights ATV Club. We have had the township roads in our area open for, I believe, 6 or 7 years now. And it really works out great. And this, I urged us to go through because it also lets other clubs connect with one another, to interact with one another. And as Bill said earlier, this is a very big growing sport, and I don't see it stopping. Thank you.
Brad Kraus of Fort Atkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm in support of this number 10 as far as the ATV traffic goes too. It's not that we're out to make a ruckus or change anything up. I just want to support it. It's just nice to get out and go around. So that's all I really got, is just trying to make some more support. The more people we got, the better off we're going to be. Thank you very much for your time.
Ben, is it M-A-U or M-A-N?
Decline.
Okay. So Dean Hackle. Yes. H-A-C-K-L. Mr. Hackle. Okay. James Foy of Madison, F-O-Y-E.
Decline.
Fine. Okay. Charles Schutte from Beaver Dam.
Decline as well.
Okay. Diane Pasno of Exonia.
I'm Diane Pasno from, I live at N9071 Ridge Lane, Watertown. And based on listening to Corporate Counsel Ward's explanation of things that were in the JDA, I'm a little confused. I don't know if things have been negotiated in the last week or so, but the last time I reviewed it, there were things that I felt regarding safety and the buffer zone that he spoke to as being in the JDA that as of a week ago weren't in there. So I'm a little confused. So I'm speaking tonight to request you either table the joint developers agreement in front of you tonight to seek further work on the document or vote against the approval of the current draft of this agreement. In its present form that I saw a week ago, the JDA fails to adequately protect citizens of Exonia as it lacks sufficient language in Section 8, which is the safety section, to address potential serious emergency situations that may arise at a facility that deals with hazardous gases and converts natural gas to a liquid form by freezing it to 265 degrees below zero. The citizens of Exonia and Jefferson County have a right to be properly prepared and know in advance what steps to take to protect ourselves and our families should a leak, emergency, or catastrophic system failure occur. In its current form, the JDA does not speak to these with sufficient detail. I request that language pertaining to warning systems, evacuation processes, and communications be included with sufficient specificity so citizens know what to expect, and that we would know that, and that you would know that before any JDA is signed. I request that the agencies responsible for ensuring the necessary emergency plans are developed be included in this document so citizens know who to contact with questions or concerns. I request that all emergency plans be annually reviewed, updated, and shared with the public, and that specific language pertaining to this be added to the JDA to ensure that this takes place. I request language be added to ensure all emergency plans be evaluated by an identified outside and objective agency with expertise in dealing with catastrophic emergency situations involving liquefied natural gas. I feel these are reasonable and fair requests to make so Exonia citizens can take the necessary steps to be properly informed and prepared for emergency situations that may arise from this LNG facility. Without these necessary assurances before you sign it or approve it, our personal safety is put at further risk. Thank you for your serious consideration of these requests.
Thank you. Takes us to Tiffany Carey. Tiffany Carey. I think she's on Zoom, yes. Go ahead, Tiffany. Her mic isn't working?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see if she can fix it. We'll go to Jessica Repnow. I believe she's on. We having technical difficulties with this one too? Jessica Repnow? Okay, we'll go to Jeff Smith. Jeff Smith.
Any of them.
Jeff, you're not transmitting.
You're the boardroom.
Jeff, you need to start over. Jeff, you need to start over. It wasn't on. Your mic wasn't on. So wherever you started, you need to start over from the beginning. Supervisor Smith.
Jeff Smith, the supervisor, or is there another Jeff Smith in the
No,
room?
no, it's you, but your mic wasn't on. So go ahead, Supervisor Smith.
Okay, I go back to having questions. I hit the request to speak button when the person talking about the JDA came on. That I had several questions about the JDA that I wasn't trying to public speak. I had questions about that, so I don't know if we can go back to that or whatever. So
Well, Supervisor Smith, you'll have your turn to talk when we get to item number 9. Do you have something you want to make in public comment here?
no, I had hit the request to speak button during the JDA.
Okay.
Whoever was talking about that, that's why my button was hit. So
We'll come back to you then. Then we'll go back to Tiffany Carey then. Tiffany Carey? Tiffany
Can you hear
Carey.
me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I'm Tiffany Carey. I live at N9162 North Road in Exonia. I was hearing people talk about the protections for neighboring landowners. And this has been something that I've been hearing people in my neighborhood talk about since the beginning and have been advocating for. So just so that you can understand, this is going to be a 150-foot tower in the middle of rural agricultural land. So most of the people who live in this neighborhood, but who are not farming, bought homesteads to live in this natural farming area. Yes, We Energies has agreed to compensate some neighboring landowners and excluded some neighboring landowners. So I own a property of land directly adjacent to this property, and my property has been excluded from that. In addition to that, there are many landowners also in proximity who are being excluded. So any screening that We Energies does on the property line the trees are going to be 30, 40, 50 feet tall at most for a long time. And so I'm currently sitting in my dining room and I am overlooking what is going to be a 150-foot tower and within all of the view of all of my windows on my house. I guess this might sound petty, but I do think that me and a bunch of my other neighbors should be also compensated in that 5,000. So I put an image in the document that I sent you that shows where exactly the tank will be and which are the properties that I think also should be compensated. And that is all I have to say today. So thank you.
Thank you. And Jessica Repnow. Hope we get this working this time. Jessica?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Jessica Repnow. I'm speaking for myself and my husband, Bill Repnow, tonight. We live at West 1179 Hill Road in Exonia. I want to thank you for allowing us to speak about this very important agreement with We Energies. 4 short years ago, my husband, my oldest daughter, and I moved into our beautiful new house. We chose to build our dream home at this exact location in Exonia because of its rural character and also the safety of this area. My main concern about the JDA is that it is clear and the safety plan is clear before we okay it and it is approved. I want to draw your attention specifically to Section 8A, Emergency Services, Fire, and EMS Plan. Specifically related to number 2 of what the plan will include, which is notification method to neighbors in the event of an evacuation outside of the LNG facility site.
I would like to ask that an outdoor siren system be utilized to alert the public if there is a need to evacuate. In addition to that, I would ask that an SMS system be in place to send communication or text quickly for those that wish to enroll. And then secondly, section 8A, the second to last sentence speaks about how the town and county will review the plan with all other locally affected emergency management and public safety agencies. I am asking that the plan be reviewed and made available to the public. I ask that this information, along with the safety plan, be available on the town's website and reviewed annually for completeness. I appreciate your time and attention.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else that came in late or has changed their mind? Jeff, did you push your button that you? No. Okay.
No.
Janet McConaughey? Janet McConaughey?
Yes, I'm here.
Your turn to speak.
Okay. I want everyone to make sure that everyone realizes that no student at Exonia grade school can walk to school. It's a state law because we have no sidewalks. So every child has to be bused, even if they live a block away, or their parents have to bring them to school and pick them up. So I'm really concerned about that intersection of North and 16. There are people when school is out at 3:40. And if you want to get on the school grounds to get lined up to collect your child, you have to be there at 10 after 3. Otherwise, it backs up down North Avenue and out onto 16th. And I'm thinking that there is just so much opportunity for disaster at that intersection. They're going to have big equipment trucks, loaded trucks going through that intersection. And according to the JDA, they can operate at least 6 days a week. And if they need Sundays, they can do that too. The weekend is merely aggravation for all the people living on that street. But Monday through Friday, I think it poses a real significant public health problem. So I would like to see that addressed. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? More? Anybody that was here earlier changed their mind? Like to speak?
Very rough now.
Didn't we do? Oh, we have another Repnow. I had a Jessica. Now is it Mary Repnow? Mary Repnow.
Well, I gotta get her. Okay.
Mary, you can go. She's muted.
Here we go. I found it. Sorry about that. Okay, I'm Mary Repnow. I live at N9640 Marsh Road in the town of Exonia. I did write you a letter last week regarding the JDA with We Energies. And I got some responses back. Thank you very much. I'm just not sure everybody was able to read it because I know you got a lot of responses. My main concern is under section 8, emergency services, fire and EMS plan, because the way the JDA reads now, it says the utility shall prepare and submit a plan detailing potential emergencies. I really am asking that you require an independent third party conduct a full set of LNG release worst case scenario studies and have them help prepare a safety analysis. I just think that by having We Energies prepare the plan, it continues to allow them the opportunity to frame public perception. They continue to focus on the low probabilities for disaster. And with my grandchildren living 1,400 feet away from that facility, I would be much more comfortable if you took the power away from We Energies and hired independent experts to develop the studies and the safety plans. I just think it would be incredibly irresponsible and negligent on the behalf of Town of Ixonia and Jefferson County if they did not hire a third-party expert to do this. So I'm urging you to send the JDA back to the Executive Committee to outline the steps needed to have the independent worst-case scenario study completed, and to clarify the safety protocol measures that would be developed by expert professionals. So I appreciate your time and thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Kurt Orcott. Kirk Orcott. We still have some minutes left, so Kirk Orcott.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, my name is Kirk Orcott. I live in the town of Lake Mills at W8696 County Road B. I just wanted to make a comment about the UTV ATV ordinance to get passed. I'm in favor of it. We worked with the Quad County runners for some time and our local township here to get our roads open for UTV ATV use. And I've spoken to a lot of people that would really be in favor of the county to go forward with the county roads so that we could connect more of our township roads together. We have some little islands, like Jeff Sabell was saying, in the Milford area right now, and we'd like to be able to connect to areas such as Waterloo, Milford, and other areas within Jefferson County. So I am for it, and I thank you guys for your time and your consideration.
Thank you. We have 1 minute left. Anyone else? Okay. Public comment is closed. Moves us on to item 9, resolution entering in a joint development agreement with Wisconsin Gas LLC and the town of Ixonia for the construction and operation of liquefied natural gas facility in the town of Ixonia. Supervisor Bernard.
Resolution number 2021-47. Wisconsin Gas LLC desires to develop, construct, and operate a liquefied natural gas facility capable of liquefying, storing, and vaporizing natural gas for peaking service and associated natural gas pipelines with necessary associated facilities in the town of Ixonia. The Wisconsin Public Service Commission has jurisdiction over this project and is in the process of reviewing the petition from Wisconsin Gas LLC. In addition to Wisconsin Public Service Commission approval, this project also requires the issuance of a conditional use permit by the Jefferson County Planning and Zoning Committee, which was granted on November 11th, 2020, and included public comment and input from the town of Ixonia. As part of the conditional use permit approval process, the Planning and Zoning Committee required Wisconsin Gas to enter into a joint development agreement with Jefferson County and the town of Ixonia to address impacts to the town and county due to the operation of a liquefied natural gas facility. Wisconsin Gas has agreed to enter into a joint development agreement with Jefferson County and the town of Ixonia, and a draft of this agreement is attached to this resolution, which has been approved by the town of Ixonia. Items addressed in the joint development agreement include emergency response and safety procedures, setbacks from the property of adjoining landowners, plan review, transportation impact on local roads, drainage impact, vegetation management, noise parameters, land use studies, and fiscal impacts. The Executive Committee considered this draft joint development agreement at its meeting on March 31st, 2021, and recommended forwarding the attached draft joint development agreement to the county board to authorize the county administrator to enter into a joint development agreement with Wisconsin Gas LLC to develop, construct, and operate a liquefied natural gas facility in Jefferson County. The fiscal note, Jefferson County and the town of Ixonia will no longer receive property tax revenue on the lands used for operation of the liquefied natural gas facility, but will receive utility aid from the state of Wisconsin, which is expected to exceed the amount of lost property tax revenue. I move approval of this resolution.
Second. Second from Supervisor Brogler. Discussion, questions?
Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Renard.
I would like to make a motion that we postpone action on this item until our May 11th County Board meeting. And the reason I'm making this motion is, as a lot of you know, tonight is also the night of town annual meetings. Many of our members, including Supervisor Zastro, who represents part of the town of Ixonia, are going to have to leave to go to their town annual meetings. Some of us just want to be at our town annual meetings. So we don't have much time before 7 o'clock when these meetings begin. And we also have the ATV resolution on our agenda, which I believe also is going to develop into quite a debate, and there will be many questions about it. On the JDA, I have prepared 3 amendments, which I plan to introduce at the time we discuss this. I don't know if other supervisors also have amendments prepared or whether they will propose some during the discussion, but I expect that we would have a very vigorous and thorough debate on this document. I think we should do that. And we should allow ourselves enough time to do that, to consider all the aspects, the amendments, answer questions. And so May 11th is only 3 weeks away because of our late meeting in April. And as you saw in one of the emails that our county administrator set out, you know, the clock may be ticking, but it's not getting close to midnight yet. The Public Service Commission will not be deciding on this permit to grant Wisconsin Gas approval to build and construct this facility in the next 3 weeks. You can see from the timeline of the Public Service Commission that Mr. Waymeyer sent out, the public hearing on this application by We Energies won't even be held until July. So we have time to consider this, to not rush our decision on this issue, because I think it's really important. This is a big deal. And I do feel that perhaps the chair of the Highway Committee would like to have that ATV resolution or ordinance resolved before the weather gets really nice and people want to be out and about, or at least knowing whether they can be out and about on the roads with those vehicles. So for that reason, I'm asking you as a courtesy to Supervisors Astro and others who wish to go to their town annual meetings at 7 o'clock, and to just expedite our agenda for this evening and move on to the ATV resolution. I ask that our discussion and action on the JDA be postponed to a date certain in 3 weeks, May 11th.
Who is the seconding? Second by Supervisor Christensen. Discussion on this. Excuse me. Discussion on this amendment. Supervisor Schultz.
Just a quick question to Blair. Do you see any legal problems with a 3-week delay?
I do not.
Any other discussion on this amendment? Discussion on this amendment. All in favor of postponing this till the county board meeting on May 11th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Let's do a roll call, just to make sure.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'd just like to say that I had a long day today. I forgot my notebook. It's just one of those days.
Well, she'll ask you personally, Mr. Falker. Mr. Morris too, okay. Supervisor Morris too, okay. All right, go ahead.
And I
Let's
want
go
one
ahead
for mine.
and vote. And then, Madam Clerk, if you want to.
Mr. Chair, would you just clarify the motion that we're voting on? Just
The motion is to postpone the discussion and possible approval or action on Resolution 2021-47. Oh, it's this. Okay, it's not motion. It's resolution number 1. Okay, there you go. Resolution number 1 to postpone it till the May County Board meeting, which will be May 11th. That's the motion on the floor and seconded. And any further discussion? Otherwise, we're in a vote. So now it's up to you, Madam.
Supervisor David?
Supervisor David, please go again.
Yes. Yes, if you.
Supervisor Morris? Supervisor Martin?
yes.
Supervisor Lindell? Supervisor Felker? Supervisor Nealon? We have 19 yes, 6 no, 1 abstain, 2 absent, and 1 did not vote.
Okay, so this will be postponed till May 11th. This will take us to item number 10, Highway Committee. Supervisor Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ordinance number 2021-1. Jefferson County All-Terrain and Utility Vehicle Route Ordinance. Section 1, General. Following due consideration of recreational and economic value to access businesses and residences weighed against the possible dangers, public health, public safety, liability aspects, terrain involved, traffic density, and other traffic risks. And this ordinance is enacted pursuant to section 59.02 and 23.33 Wisconsin state statutes and the provisions of Wisconsin Administrative Code NR 64 regulating ATV operation, which is hereby incorporated and adopted. I would like to motion the rest of it as printed. If anybody has any questions, there is very well laid out points to each one. So I would move for adoption of this ordinance, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Do I have a second to that? Second by Supervisor Lindell. Discussion, questions? Supervisor.
First of all, is Terry Kostrowski still here? Yes, she is. I don't know if anybody else noticed, but she got up and she did not want to use the mic. She didn't want to hear herself seconds after she said what she said. And in her very next statement said she would like to echo Sheriff Milbrath's sentiments. It just made me laugh. Sorry.
He's the only one that caught that joke.
and we're not echoing anymore. So, I'm on the highway committee, and when I first saw this proposal, frankly, it kind of turned me off. I thought, oh my gosh, do we really want them on the road with us? You know, I could just, because what I see on the roads already, you know, is enough to give you nightmares. But the more we delved into this, and the more we attempted to understand it, the more feasible it became, to me at least. These vehicles have to be licensed. The drivers have to have license. I had this, in the beginning, I had this vision of kids out there in their four-wheelers driving up and down the road. And I know that's not what we wanted, but that's not what this allows. These vehicles have to be licensed. The drivers have to be licensed. I believe they have to be insured. Am I right about that? They do have to be insured. They have to have everything we require on the road. The other thing I thought, you know, oh my gosh, the last thing I wanted to do is go with the bypass and have them, you know, the way cars drive on they can't go on the bypass. That's a state highway. This only addresses county roads. One other recommendation that came up was, well, one of the reasons where this would be helpful is to go from one dirt path to another. If they're not connected, they can at least use the roads, and maybe we can just require them just to use only the roads that connect the paths. But that is just from a law enforcement standpoint. I don't know what sheriff thinks about this, but my personal opinion is I do not want to have our county sheriff's deputies see a four-wheeler or ATV or whatever and think, okay, now is he going from this one to that one? Maybe I'll pull him over and ask him where he came from, where he's going to, and is that a legal route? I don't think we want to put that burden on our deputies on the road. We simplified this. We got rid of that. We simplified this. If it's a county road, they can be there, but with set times. They can't, the middle of the night, they can't be 2 a.m, they can't be out there. But there are set times and also seasons, I believe. I wouldn't want to see one out there on the ice in January. But the other thing that I think was important for me was the information we got from the counties that have done this. Most of their accidents for these kind of vehicles are on the off-road trails. We got lists of them, and the lists said fell through the ice. And well, that wasn't on a road. You can tell that. And there are very few accidents involved. These vehicles are able to propel. You know, they're not going to putt along at 5 miles an hour. And so we allow two-wheelers out there. We call them motorcycles, but they're two-wheelers, and we allow them out there. So this is reasonable. The other thing I would point out is it has a sunset. Now, the sunset does not mean it ends in 2 years, but it requires us to take a look at the numbers and see if it's worked as well as it's worked in the other counties. And it has worked in the other counties. But in 2 years, we'll review it, see if it has in fact worked that well here. So I went from thinking this is an awful idea to thinking this is a pretty reasonable resolution. This is a pretty reasonable idea. And I would urge everybody to support this.
Supervisor Jones had his hand up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The City of Waterloo has made available all city streets to ATVs and UTVs for close to the last 2 years now. At first, I said agree with Supervisor Schultz when I heard this was going to happen. I wasn't too excited about these vehicles ripping around our quiet little neighborhoods, but I have not noticed any problems in the 2 years. I have not heard of any problems in the 2 years. And just to sort of summarize, they have to follow the same laws as other vehicles. They have helped the local economy, and there is a sunset clause. So if problems arise, they can be corrected. Mr. Chair, I will support this resolution.
Supervisor Lund.
the liability aspects, terrain involved, traffic density, and other traffic risks of enacting this ordinance outweigh the recreational value to access businesses and residences. I plan to vote no on this ordinance. Thank you.
And Supervisor Payne?
Thank you. There were two people who did not vote yes. They voted no for this ordinance in committee, and I was one of them for several reasons. I don't really feel that these are safe on the road. They are designed to be off-road vehicles, not to be on the road. And while some other counties have opened these up, open their county roads up to these vehicles, they are often in counties that have much lower population. They are not have such high traffic volumes. Also, the town roads tend to have a lot fewer cars on them, much lower speeds. And so I feel in our county that with our county roads all being 55 miles an hour, all being high traffic roads, particularly roads like N, that this would not be safe to be on here. In addition, some of the other counties that have opened up all their county roads, or some of them, they are mostly up north and have quite a few off-road trails, and it's a whole trail system. Whereas here in Jefferson County, we do not have a robust off-road trail system. So in essence, by opening up the county roads, our county roads become the ATV, UTV trail system. And that just really isn't something that I want to see in our county. It just does not seem to be safe to me for the ATVs, UTVs, and the cars. And then lastly, I just wanted to comment on what Supervisor Schultz had said about hours of operation. So they are not allowed by this ordinance to travel on the roads between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. And it's still dark at, 5 o'clock most times a year. 10 o'clock seems pretty late for a nuisance. 5 a.m. seems pretty early for a nuisance, particularly on a Sunday. So I find that section of the ordinance not sufficient. And so those are the main reasons why I oppose this ordinance. Thank you.
Supervisor Jekyll, had your hand up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The reason I've brought this forward is I was on the highway committee over 8 years ago, or 6 years ago at least minimum, and I was approached by one of the ATV clubs which is represented here tonight, just to use a section, and it was turned down at that time. But since then, state law has also changed to allow them to run on our county roads. Highway commissioner is here, sheriff is here. We build our county roads to Class A specifications when we build them. There's a couple of them that are still Class B, but they're in, lower areas, and they're under the road improvement plan for the next couple of years anyhow to be improved better. I feel if it's safe enough myself, if bicycles can use all these routes, I don't see why these things which, can actually travel at speeds which would not impede traffic and stuff like a bicycle or even farm equipment goes slower than, these things will. So these things won't be necessarily a traffic hazard that way. Plus, I attended last week the Traffic Safety Committee meeting, which we had asked to be put on ever since this ordinance was proposed at the Highway Committee. And they first finally got around to meeting last week, which was over a year out from their last meeting. And I was there, the sheriff was there, Bill was there, and so wasn't the state patrol. And they actually you know, they didn't take a formal vote, but they all agreed with that. It was a okay thing to go ahead and try this. They had no concerns themselves. And I mean, I figured if the state patrol was there and the sheriff was there, I didn't think, you know, that was too bad of a problem. So that's why I was hoping a lot of people would support this. I personally went to the meeting and felt that way, that I'd put in a little bit of input where they asked me for. That was all I did at that meeting. Thank you.
Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I too was at, I guess, a couple of the Highway Committee meetings when this was discussed, or at least on Zoom, and I also attended the Traffic Safety Commission meeting, which Supervisor Jekyll just referred to. Now, I'm not on any crusade for or against this particular ordinance, but by reading when I read the ordinance, I get more questions as a result that I'd like to have, and I'd like to have a few of these settled. I wish there was more time tonight to go through this more, but I'm just going to go through a couple. So one of the issues I have with this is I'd like to see more outreach to the townships. This adoption of this ordinance will put pressure on townships to adopt or to allow ATV use, because not all townships have adopted ATV use, and they'll have to consider it in a hurry. Koshkonong has allowed temporary use of one road, and we're waiting for the results on that. But I think since we've been striving to have intergovernmental agreements and cooperation, I think it would be good for the towns to weigh in and be a part of the process here. One of the questions at the meeting the other day was what adjoining counties have done. That question didn't get answered at that meeting. I called around to the surrounding counties that adjoin Jefferson County, and none of them have approved of it, except for Dodge, which approves some roads, but not all roads. And most of them haven't even considered it, only Dodge. And frankly, one person, and I won't say who it was, basically said, "Are you nuts?" They were kind of surprised that we would even think about it. Well, I explained where I don't think I'm nuts, but that's yet to be determined. The 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. clause is a concern for me because much of that is in the dark. ATVs are not required to have turn signals. Hand signals are approved, are okay for that, according to the sheriff. But I don't think that's a terrific safety item. So I'm wondering why 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. What is the reason for that? If it's darkness or light, if that's an issue, then I think it should be more specified. I did see that in the state law when I looked at it, they're allowed to have be as loud as 96 decibels. That's pretty loud. That's one of my main objections. Would be people going up and down near my house if the town ever allows it. And then finally, the sunset clause. I think the sunset clause should actually be a sunset clause where it sunsets and requires a board approval to continue after the trial period. So those are my questions. I'm going to have a hard time voting for this without some clarification on these things and more opportunity for towns to weigh in. But if somebody else wanted to make a motion to send it back to the committee so we could clarify these things, I would favor that. But I'm not going to make that motion. And I'm one of the people who's going to go to the town meeting pretty soon in a few minutes. So thanks for your time.
Thank you. Supervisor Falker had your hand up.
Thank you, Mr. Represent the town of Hebron as a supervisor, and I think we were probably the first township in the county to pass an ordinance that ATVs, UTVs could use our roads. And they had clubs there, and they put up all the signage. Cemetery cleanup coming up this weekend, and those guys come out with. And like I say, I'm speaking in favor of this. We've had nothing but good feelings with these guys, and you think there's little kids out there running up and down your roads. Most of these guys got $20,000 machines, and they're my age, not after the remote drag racing down the roads anymore.
change is that?
I'm in favor.
They remember their laptops though, don't they? I couldn't help myself, Supervisor Falcon. Supervisor Kennard.
Yeah, I represent the town and the village of Sullivan. They both, for a number of years now, have been allowing them. And as far as I know, there has not been any issues with either in the village or in the township. I meet just about every meeting, and I haven't heard a squeak out of anybody at a meeting that there's any kind of problem.
Supervisor Zastro.
You've probably been waiting for this because I'm the only guy that voted against it at our committee meeting. And I'm not against the ATVs and UTVs. In my family, we have about 8 of them. They all ride on trails. Nobody rides on the road. The issue I have is those machines being allowed to travel at highway speeds. And no way is that vehicle, especially the older ones, can they safely operate at highway speeds? They're intended to drive at a slower speed in retirement villages, in cities and towns, like at Waterloo. There's nobody traveling 60 miles an hour in your town. I know that. These vehicles are driving 25 miles an hour, if that's what the speed limit is, and that's a safe speed. Another thing, no turn signals. You can't see a hand signal at night when a guy's wearing a dark colored jacket or a gal and your headlights are on dim. There's no way you're going to see that hand out there. So that issue is totally mute as far as using hand signals. And I think the regular turn signals should be required. Another thing that happened here just 10 days ago, I had a serious accident right ahead of my house. I happened to be standing about 30 feet from the road. This man blew out a tire, and a second later, he's hitting my culvert, breaking a 6x6 beam. The vehicle went end over end, rolled about 6 more times, came to a stop about 120 feet away. If that had been a UTV going 55 or 60 miles an hour with a driver that wasn't in a seatbelt, I doubt whether he would have survived. This man in this vehicle happened to be a Ford Explorer, a strong cage, never caved in, all the windows were out, and he suffered only minor injuries. I was expecting to find a casualty when I walked over to the car. So I feel for the safety issue of the drivers, we have to think of speed and turn signals as 2 of the things we should have considered before we pass this. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe next is Supervisor Smith.
Concerned like several other people. I've heard the maximum speed on these vehicles is supposed to be 35 miles an hour, and the manufacturer specifically states they're not to be driven on roads. That as I'm driving down County B or County Y at 55 and I've got somebody in front of me doing 35, I can't help but think that's going to be some kind of hazard. That I guess I have to wonder why they couldn't go down the shoulder, or, you know, if they have to go somewhere, they're off-road vehicles. Why don't we have a place where they can be off the road safely, where they're not going to be interfering with highway speed?
And Supervisor Kelly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As a member of the Highway Committee, I also sat through a number of meetings when this was discussed. And like Supervisor Schultz, I came into this issue somewhat on the fence. I had safety concerns. What I'd like to add here is at the Safety Commission meeting that was held on this, there were also officers there from a number of the surrounding police departments in the community. And there were really no safety concerns expressed. At this point in time, I'd support this resolution and would urge my colleagues to as well. Thank you.
Supervisor Roberts.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have concerns because a lot of the roads are curvy, hilly, and as they said, the speed is 55 miles an hour. And so am concerned about that. Plus, I have a vision of 16-year-olds getting out there and racing, and that worries me. I mean, could the age limit be higher? The ATVs don't even have a roof, right? I can't hear anybody.
Nobody's here to answer those questions right now. So,
You can't answer that question.
well, some do, some don't. We all have pictures on our desk of one that does.
Okay. I'm just concerned about the fact that 55 miles an hour, the roads are hilly, they're curvy, and 16-year-old kids and the farm kids are only 14, they can get a driver's license. It's very concerning to me. So if you raise the age limit to who could drive them, I might feel more comfortable there. Thank you.
Supervisor Backlund.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Just for some clarification, you know, you can buy street tires for UTVs, and a lot of people actually have street tires for them if they know they have access to county roads. They are all roll barred. You can't do 55 because they have seatbelt interlocks. It will lock you out at, I think, like 15 miles an hour. At least that's what mine does. If you don't have a seatbelt on and fastened. So I know some of these safety concerns right now. You know, you talked about the farm kids, Mary. They already have access to drive their vehicles on the road between the farms and the fields. So they are already out there on our roads under a different premise. And you're right, it's an older crowd that has the majority of the UTVs. And like they said, they're not, you know, these are people that are responsible. They're, you know, some run upwards of $30,000. So anyhow, for some of the ones that have safety, there are also you can get kits to put blinkers on in the whole 9 yards. So I am in favor, and I do understand people's concerns. I think some of them, though, maybe not all the information is out there. Thank you.
Anyone else for the first time speaking? Supervisor Dorina.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As most of you know, probably, I worked for Sheriff Milbrath in the sheriff's office for 28 years. Majority of it, traffic enforcement, whether it's cars, ATVs, boats, DNR, anything. I support this. I think there's a misconception that there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of ATVs and UTVs out there at a time. I don't think that's the case. I think it's from getting from trail to trail at some points. Yeah, they're going to use the highways. I can't remember in my 28 years having a complaint about a UTV or an ATV recklessly. Crashes, very minimal. I can't, you know, top of my head, remember any crash that resulted or started on a highway and resulted in any type of injury. I support this. I think there is some misconceptions out there that there's just going to be ATVs and UTVs running around recklessly. I don't think that's the case. Like you said, most of these machines, I would love one. I don't have the 20,000, 25,000 to get one. So I'm going to pass, but certainly if I had one, I would want to do that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anyone else for their first time? Supervisor Renard.
Yeah, I also had a question about the ordinance. If all the routes for the ATVs and UTVs are all county highways, does that mean that all county highways have to be have installed the signage? And what is that signage like? Is it like every 5 miles there has to be a sign? And I'm just wondering how much that might cost. And also, I'm wondering if maybe it wouldn't be a good idea to designate the routes for ATVs and UTVs to be some county highways, but not others. When I was driving here this evening at a high rate of speed, because I foolishly went home to get my voting device, which I forgot. I'm driving on Highway F between Exonia and the interstate, and it was very busy. There are semis of people who live in the subdivisions are racing to get home from work. And it's a really, really twisty, windy road. And I'm having a hard time visualizing these vehicles on a road like that. And at night, I think it would be kind of scary. So is there some option to have some roads but not other roads? And then my question is about the signage and how that would work.
Mr. Chair, I could answer that if
Yes, yeah.
she would.
Please, Supervisor Jacob.
The signage, actually, we talked about, and Mr. Kern did a rough estimate, figured it was going to be around $1,200 to $1,500 or something like around there to sign it. We were going to sign them at wherever the county roads entered the county. So if you're coming from Waukesha or Dodge or Walworth or Rock County or Dane County, that's where the signage would be to inform people that when they came in, they're, possibly could see them. To your next aspect about the Highway F, I hope you weren't speeding because that means the sheriffs wasn't, doing their job catching you. The next, to that point is Highway F. Actually, I drive that driven it quite a bit over the years, especially with my gravel truck. There's a lot of farm fields I know along there. This time of the year is going to be coming up planting season, and I know a lot of the farmers do use these UTVs, and it's been brought up by several people. They're under a whole different jurisdiction with that. They can run actually any of these roads with them that they please, because as long as it goes from their field to their farm where they have a business or aspect of their business, they can operate them. They're licensed as a farm vehicle, but they can actually operate them on there, and they can operate them on a state highway as long as it's not, posted at 65 or 70. They can actually operate them on Highway 18, Highway 106, and they do. So, I've seen them out a lot, especially in planting, harvesting, midsummer, the spraying season, where they, spray the fields. So they've operated around here. Maybe you haven't seen them, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of them to begin with. It's, the clubs are going to, a lot of them will do these get-togethers on a weekend. So maybe a Saturday or a Sunday deal is when 90% of these rides, happen. And, there's going to be the other occasional retired people that can do it during the middle of the week. But I don't see everybody's worry about these being to the extent that it is. I drive the roads. I picked up the map. I've showed it at the highway committee. All the county roads are posted as bicycle routes. They may say more difficult or less difficult. They do not have to have a headlight to operate. They don't have to have a tail light to operate. And they do not do 35 miles an hour. So when you come up over that curvy hill, guess what? I got to slow down to their speed because 90% of them do not move over and give me the right of way. So, the safety aspect is at least these machines can operate to speed, and, they can get it off-road if they need to. Somebody on a bicycle may not take the shoulder because they're going to lose it in the gravel. These could if they need to. I guess if there's more questions, I can answer them, but that's still, kind of the way things are.
Anybody else for their first time to speak? Laura Payne, it's your second turn.
Yeah.
And then we'll go to Supervisor Schultz and Supervisor Christensen, and then Supervisor Johnson. And get your hand up fast enough. It's Supervisor Payne right now.
I just wanted to clarify a couple of things. I was at this Traffic Safety Commission meeting this last week, as well. And there was something that was brought up by the Lake Mills police officer. I'm not sure of his name, but he had some concerns and checked with the DNR during the meeting. And it seems to be that that in general, the ATVs, UTVs will have to follow the rules of the roads, but they do not, if they are driving while intoxicated, they would not be getting the same OWI as somebody driving a car. They would get an ATV, UTV, OWI. It wouldn't go towards any points for their insurance. It would not be treated the same way as a driver of a car. And so he seemed to have some concerns with that. So I didn't feel the same that the that everyone, the safety commission, thought it was just fine. I didn't think there were that many comments at all from them. And I was surprised about that. So that was my comment on that, but I wanted to also comment about the signage that Supervisor Renard asked about. We, like Supervisor Jekyll said, we did discuss it quite a bit. And to go back to Supervisor Christensen, not all of the towns, like he said, have ordinances that allow ATV, UTV uses on their town roads. So that was another topic of discussion quite a bit. How do drivers know if they're on the county roads, the town roads? There will not be signs when you get to the town road saying that you can't go onto these town roads, or even that is a town road. I feel that most people won't be able to distinguish between county and town roads. Maybe all of us do, but I feel that most people won't. So that was also a concern and talked about, that these roads will not be signed, and it might give undue pressure to townships that don't allow it to have unauthorized driving on their town roads, and also feel the need to put up signs to prevent it from happening. And that is a burden to many of our townships that I don't feel that we should be placing on them at this time. And so that too, I think Supervisor Christensen is correct, that we need more input from some of these townships and see how it affects them. So thank you.
I'm going to go a little off schedule here. We have people getting up ready to leave to go to their township meetings right now, and I have 4 more people waiting to speak yet here. But I know there's a motion that wants to be put on the floor here because of the fact that the board discussion is going to make it. So Supervisor Zastrow, you have the floor.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to postpone this issue until the May meeting.
Second.
I have a second from Supervisor Renard. Any discussion on this amendment? Supervisor Christensen.
I guess I would prefer that it be sent back to committee for consideration of the questions that we've had here tonight. I think it can be resolved before the next opportunity at a board meeting.
Right now, the motion is to be postponed. Whether it goes back to the committee or not, that would be another amendment. Or we could have this discussion on the floor, whatever. Supervisor Schultz.
Yeah, I'm opposed to postponing this, and it's obviously a delay attempt on it, and it's nothing more than that. This is something that this season is starting. It's starting now, and to delay it, for basically political reasons, that's what it is wrong.
I'll see. Other discussion on this proposal? Supervisor Jekyll.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I also agree with Mr. Schultz. I mean, we've had this in my committee for over 8 months. And like I said, it kept getting postponed for traffic safety committee review of it. And like I say, I would want to put Bill and the sheriff both on the spot here today that it had a decent approval agreement at the committee. So I think, the safety aspect that everybody seems to be so worried about is just totally political right at this moment, because if with the law enforcement we had on there, one was from the city of Lake Mills, and I don't know if that's, because the city of Lake Mills doesn't want them to run through it, but we're not asking the cities or townships that don't have these to make them do it. That's up to their own committees and boards that they have if they do it. So I would vote against the postponement of this.
Any further discussion on this amendment? Or not amendment, this proposal on the floor? Any further discussion? So the proposal on the floor is to postpone this for further discussion at the May 11th county board meeting. Everybody clear what that motion is? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay. Sounds like it's going to stay on the floor.
We'll be leaving.
Okay. Further discussion. Jeff Johns hasn't spoken yet. He is not. Supervisor Schultz, do you have anyone else?
I wanted to address Supervisor Renard's comments because her two questions are basically intertwined. If we, as suggested, just designate certain county roads, then we're going to have to invest in a lot more signage. Which roads are, which roads are not. If we just say if it's a county highway, Highway J, Highway N, whatever, you can drive on them. Then, the signs are coming into the county, just alerting people that this is what we do in this county. The other question the other comment, I forgot who made it, was most of these counties that have it are up north. Well, one of the counties we looked at committee was Dodge. And yeah, they're up north, depends on what part of Watertown you live in. And it's also a fairly populated county with parts of Watertown, Beaver Dam. It's not some podunk way up in north. And those are numbers that we looked at. Most of the accidents, as I indicated before, were on the off roads. Were on the they fell through the ice, stuff like that. There were very few incidents on the road. This is something I looked at because my feeling was the same as a lot of you that spoke in the beginning. I thought, oh my God, we really want them there. And what's that going to do for safety? Well, the safety record they have, including in Dodge County, which is real similar to Jefferson, even though it is up north, is quite good. And so what we've done is propose this, made it fairly simple, and put a sunset in that said we will review it in 2 years. And I think that's reasonable. That season is about to start, and I hope this board approves it.
Anyone else? Anyone else? Supervisor Morris.
Regardless of a sunset clause, I mean, a year from now, if this is a massive problem, can't we just rescind this ordinance?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Anytime. Further discussion or questions? Anything else? We'll try a voice vote. All in favor of this ordinance number 1, Jefferson County all-terrain ATV and utility terrain vehicle route ordinance, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No. No.
The ayes have it. Okay. On to Human Resources Committee, Supervisor Brogler.
Good evening. Resolution number 2021, number 2, non-controversial.
accepting grant funding through the Greater Wisconsin Community Health Foundation and creating 2 full-time school psychotherapist positions at Human Services Department. The Jefferson County Human Services Department has determined that there's an increase in the need for mental health and substance abuse treatment for youth in Jefferson County. Youth are experiencing more stress and anxiety and consequently suffering more long-term adverse childhood experiences due to the pandemic. County school districts are also concerned about the youth missing school as well as quality learning time. Vanessa Oss, CEO of Open Minds, a mental health industry resource, has said, and the future view is that we can expect a tsunami of children's mental health needs in the years ahead, driven by the trauma of the pandemic. Jefferson County Human Services and the Greater Watertown Community Health Foundation have partnered to further support our youth and school districts as well as offer more on-site and preventative services. By employing social workers and therapists who work directly in the schools, youth will be provided universal resiliency skills, screens and assessments, and mental health treatment. The overall outcome is for more youth to successfully complete high school and prevent long-standing mental health, and substance abuse issues. Therefore, the Jefferson County Human Services Director is requesting to create 2 school social psychotherapist positions funded jointly with the Greater Watertown Community Health Foundation for 2 years at $100,000 per position for each of the 2 years, with each stakeholder funding $50,000 per position per year for a total of $100,000 per year. After the first 2 years, Jefferson County Human Services would sustain each position by having built the necessary revenue streams through Medicaid and insurance billing. On March 9, 2021, the Human Services Board and on March 23, 2021, the Human Resource Committee reviewed the request from the Human Services Director and County Administrator to create 2 psychotherapist positions at the Human Services Department, funded jointly for the first 2 years with the Greater Watertown Health Community Foundation, and recommended forwarding this resolution to the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors for approval. Fiscal note. The grant through the Greater Watertown Community Health Foundation is for 24 months for a total of $200,000. Salary and fringe benefits for the 2 full-time school psychotherapist positions for the remainder of 2020 is $99,774.93 and $17,860.60 in overhead expenses for a total of $117,531.53. The 2 full-time psychotherapist positions are funded by a grant from the Greater Watertown Community Health Foundation in an amount of $100,000 and $4,656.32 from insurance billings, and a reduction of $12,966.21 in overhead costs in all other projects. Therefore, no tax levy is required for these positions. These budget amendments were approved by the Board of Supervisors on March 9, 2021 as part of a 2020 carryover. This is a budget amendment. County Board approval requires 2/3 of the entire membership of the 20 board, 20 of the 30-member board. I move for passage.
I have a second.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Schultz. Discussion, questions? I see Kathy's online with us here too. Kathy, call in case you have any questions. Seeing none, we need a roll call vote here for because this is a budget amendment. We needed 2/3, and we're getting close to not having 2/3 here, so we're going to vote right now if there isn't any more further questions. Okay, here we go.
Supervisor David?
No, I think we need to move back to the last resolution. We did not have a call for a no vote for the last resolution.
Yes, we did have a call for that.
We did not. We had not heard it on our end. We had no call for a no vote. We had no chance to vote no.
It was not heard on Zoom.
No, it wasn't.
We do not know why you didn't hear it, but we had a call for a no vote. But that was on the we have a question on the floor right now.
This is bogus. This is not democracy. This is bogus. We need to back up and do this correctly.
We need a roll call vote.
The roll. We have a roll call vote on the floor right now on this resolution, which is resolution number 2.
We're still debating the last resolution that had no call for a no vote and had no opportunity to vote no.
There is a vote on the floor.
Supervisor David?
Resolution number 2.
No one could be above the law.
Who else we're gonna?
Supervisor Herbst? Supervisor Smith?
I voted. But I still didn't get to vote it for the last time to vote no. You know, this isn't right.
Supervisor Smith, we will handle that. We have to vote on the resolution on the floor right now.
I voted.
Supervisor Morris? Supervisor Martin?
Yes.
Supervisor Lund? Supervisor Kennard?
He's gone.
Supervisor Felker?
We got 20, we can move on. 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. And I can't see what's under the other. Got 20? I think so. I think you're absolutely right. We have 20? What do we have? 20.
We have 22 yes, 2 abstain, and 6 absent.
Okay. Now, to go back to the previous question on the floor, it's opinion of the chair and our corporate counsel that you may make your vote known, yes or no. So we'll go through those that are on Zoom that were unable to vote while they were here because we asked and we apparently couldn't hear you. So if you would like to go on record, go ahead, Supervisor Smith.
No.
And Supervisor Backlund. This was on the ATV.
Yes.
Yeah, that was a yes. Supervisor Roberts.
No.
Supervisor Coots.
This is a yes.
Supervisor Payne.
No.
Supervisor Lund. Supervisor Lund. We'll come back to you. Supervisor David.
No.
Supervisor Lund. Supervisor Lund. Okay. It is duly recorded. Okay. Planning and Zoning Committee, Supervisor Jacob.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Report to the honorable members of Jefferson County Board of Supervisors. Jefferson County Planning and Zoning Committee Having considered petitions to amend the official zoning map of Jefferson County filed for public hearing held on March 18th, 2021, as required by law pursuant to Wisconsin state statutes, notice thereof having been given and being duly advised, wishes of the town boards and persons in the affected areas hereby makes the following recommendations. Approval of petitions as listed dated this 29th day of March 2021, Blaine Paulson, Secretary. Moving on to ordinance number 2021-2, amending Jefferson County zoning map. I move to amend the map as printed.
Second. Supervisor Brogler, any discussion on this ordinance? Any discussion? All in favor of ordinance number 2, amending the official zoning map, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Item 13, proclamation proclaiming May 13th as Jefferson County Peace Officers Memorial Day in Jefferson County. Supervisor Morse.
This is Proclamation 2. Whereas each year,
Cool.
So this would be one.
okay, so correction, this is Proclamation number 1. Thank you for the concern for specificity. Whereas each year Congress and the President of the United States designate May 15 as Peace Officers Memorial Day and the week in which that date falls as National Police Week. And whereas the members of the law enforcement agencies of Jefferson County play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the citizens of Jefferson County, and whereas it is important that all citizens know and understand the duties, responsibilities, hazards, and sacrifice of their law enforcement officers, and that members of our law enforcement agencies recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting citizens against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the Jefferson County Board calls upon all citizens of Jefferson County and upon all patriotic, civic, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 9 through 15, 2021 as National Police Week with appropriate ceremonies and observances in which all of our people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered dedicated service to their communities, and in so doing, have established for themselves an enviable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all citizens. And whereas the men and women of our law enforcement community unceasingly provide a vital public service, now therefore be it resolved that the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors proclaims May 13, 2021 as Jefferson County Peace Officers Memorial Day. Be it further resolved that all citizens of Jefferson County are asked to observe Thursday, May 13, 2021 as Jefferson County Peace Officers Memorial Day in honor of those law enforcement officers who through their courageous deeds have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in the performance of duty, and that all citizens recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. I move to approve this proclamation.
Who is the second? Supervisor Brogler, second. Any discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody online want to say aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. Proclaiming the month of June as Dairy Month in Jefferson County. Supervisor Zastro was going to do this, but he had to leave. Who is the vice chair? Supervisor Morris?
Not the vice.
Or one of the officers from the UW Extension Committee?
Our other one, and Mary.
Dan Hurst?
Go ahead, Supervisor Morris. You have a nice speaking voice.
Proclamation number 2, since we're concerned about numbers. Whereas agriculture in general and dairy farmers in particular have had to go through have had a tough go of it for over 5 years and would benefit from a dose of appreciation and encouragement, wouldn't we all? And whereas dairy products are a good source of vital nutrients that are part of a healthy and well-balanced diet, and whereas there are 86 dairy herds and 14,300 dairy cows in Jefferson County, and whereas dairy cows in Jefferson County produced 354 million pounds of milk per year, and whereas each dairy cow produces 24,800 pounds of milk per year, resulting in $17,000 of economic activity per cow, and whereas farm and rural families are an important part of Jefferson County's identity and culture, and whereas dairy farmers and the associated businesses surrounding them throughout the county have a significant economic impact, and whereas agricultural enterprises are a focus area in Jefferson County's emerging economic vision, and whereas the UW Extension Education Committee at its April 12, 2021 meeting considered this proclamation and recommended forwarding it to the County Board of Supervisors for adoption, now therefore be it resolved that the Jefferson County Board of Supervisors hereby proclaims, proudly, the month of June 2021 as Dairy Month in Jefferson County. I move to approve this proclamation.
Second by Supervisor Jacob. Any further discussion, questions? All in favor of this proclamation of doing this Dairy Month in Jefferson County, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. It passes. Appointments by the county administrator, item number 14.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. By the virtue of the authority vested in me in section 59.18, parent 2, parent B of the Wisconsin statutes, I respectfully request confirmation of the following appointment. Mr. Bill Kern as Highway Commissioner for a 2-year term ending May 31st, 2023. I respectfully request confirmation of this appointment.
Let's confirm.
Second.
Second from Supervisor Schultz. Discussion? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No, I can hear. Passes by voice. Appointments by the County Board Chair, item 15, John Kennard to the Wisconsin River Rail Transit Commission for a 3-year term ending April 30th, 2024. And the second one is Dick Jones to Jefferson County Economic Development Consortium for a 3-year term ending May 1st, 2024. That second item is withdrawn at this time. So we will just vote on the first one as Supervisor Kennard to the River Rail Transit Commission. Move to confirm. Is there a second? Or a second from Supervisor Winnicke. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. And appointments to the Human Services Board. Always be Mr. Jones, Supervisor Jones.
By virtue of the authority vested in the Human Service Board under section 3.061G, sub 1, sub G of the County Board Rules, the Human Service Board hereby requests County Board confirmation of the following appointment. Frankie Fuller, Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin, to the Aging and Disability Resource Center Advisory Committee, ADRC, for the 3-year term ending July 1, 2024. I move for passage.
Do I have a second?
Second, Coots.
Seconded. Any further discussion, questions? All in favor of that appointment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Hearing none. Appointment is confirmed. Is there any public comment of a general nature? Public comment of a general, Supervisor Schultz.
I thought I would do this because I haven't spoken enough tonight. I want to throw out an idea. This is not a motion because there's no agenda item, etc. But maybe the executive committee should consider reviewing Zoom. We have invested in these separations between supervisors I suspect many of us, if not most of us, have gotten our shots. I haven't got my rabies yet, but I got the other two. And we do have this, and that there's every month there appears to be issues with this. And the one thing I think that Supervisor David Point made is he wants to be heard. And boy, we've had problems with this. I'm wondering, I would like to see, I'm just throwing this out, the executive committee review it.
I don't think you get any disagreement with that, Supervisor Schultz, and I believe it's already on the agenda.
Oh, really?
Any other public comment at this time? Any other public comment this time? Seeing none. Any announcements? Any announcements? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. That is not debatable. All in favor of adjournment, say aye.
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 Can you just
Opposed?
cover that off?
We are adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for putting up with a difficult evening.
Oh, yes. Yeah, Vic.